Birthmark, a certain fiction beat me by Khadar Mohiuddin.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I would like to discuss with you a Telugu poem titled Puttumacha, written by the famous poet Khadar Mohiuddin. This poem is published in 1991, and this poem is translated into English as Birthmark by B. Narayana Rao. The poem begins with the line, "A certain fiction bit me." So let's get into the poem in detail.
A certain fiction beat me is the first line of the poem Birthmark or Puttumacha, written by the well-known Telugu poet Khadar Mohiuddin. He is one of the most popular Muslim minority poets in Andhra Pradesh who pleads for their recognition as Indians. The minority poems can be considered as fourth world literature as it expresses the voices of the underprivileged, the oppressed people in society. The poem Birthmark is notable for its expression of discontent and protest against the injustice meted out to Muslim community in India. Birthmark, as we all know, is a mark that appears on our body at the time of birth, which cannot be wiped out and stay with us forever. It becomes our mark of identity. Here in this poem, Khadar Mohiuddin speaks about the invisible birthmark that arises with the birth of a Muslim in India, the mark of a traitor, a conspirator, and an antagonist. We have the poem on the left side of the slide, and on the right side we have certain points that can be noted. So the poem Birthmark may be considered as a poem of protest. It portrays the bitter experiences of the poet as a Muslim in India. It is subjective in tone, depicting the anguish about his existence in his own nation. The poet, on the other hand, is also becoming a representative of the Muslim community in India. The poem begins with the poet's deep concerns about the fiction, the distortion, and the slander around him that torment him deeply. He was born on 10th August 1955 in a small village in a remote corner of Krishna district. Long before he was born, his name was listed among the traitors as he belonged to a family that practiced the religion of Islam. The poet's feelings of being isolated in the nation is evident in the lines. History depicted son as stepson, divided brother from brother, and left me alone. The poet's statement that son is treated as stepson and brothers are divided from each other is something that the Muslim collective consciousness suffers in Indian milieu. Khadar Mohiuddin speaks about the pages of history that misrepresented his existence. He says that textbooks laughed at him during his childhood. The history drove strange fears deep into him that tortured and threw him into the howling winds. The present makes him responsible for things he has nothing to do with. It is awful that the present generation is being held accountable for the troubles during the partition in which they have no role. The poet expresses his apprehension that the present cast around him shadows of suspicion. The shadows are always watching him over his head and in all his ways. The poet is critical of the distorted history that squeezes his existence into mere numbers. Muslims exist only in the census of India, and tactfully, the role of Muslims in the making of the nation is not evident in the history woven by the elitist historiographers. The poet says that it is injustice to see 1947 in the umbilical cord of a baby born in his house. They see 1947 in the umbilical cord, freshly cut, its end still wet with the blood of the baby born in my house. Hindi, Hindu, Hindustan, Muslim go to Pakistan. The poet says that the only other place that he can go is hell. He is helpless in the theatre of slogans. He is imprisoned in the present. The poet expresses his uneasiness when he states that there is not even constitution to pat his back. The throne of three lions, smiling behind their whiskers, takes no notice of him. This comes significant in the context of Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, which excluded the persecuted Muslim refugees from other countries, though the poem is published in 1991. The poet's agony of being treated as an alien finds expression in the lines, I have no human form except as an alien, as some kind of memorial to 1947 in the mind of the first class citizen. The poet expresses his rage and questions the trait of conspiracy attached to his identity. He lays bare a series of statements that eludes him as a conspirator and questions the conscience of society. He asks if it is not conspiracy to identify Islam with Islamabad, to dig up the earth under his feet, to make him a refugee in his own country of birth, to poison the air he breathes and the space he lives in, to cut him to pieces and then imagine an uncut Bharat. He is at dismay when the power beholders establishes religion, prayer meetings, quiet sleep, attempts to wake up, desire to have friends, desire to live, his ignorance, backwardness, marriage, and even having kids as a conspiracy. The poet says that he does menial jobs like selling flowers, fruits, and peanuts on the sidewalks, fixes broken umbrellas and watches, sieves clothes on porches, and coats cotton for a morsel of rice. He just wanted to live peacefully and quietly. But the poet could see only bloodshed in him. He sees that his blood flows in the streets like a river so as to purify it. Muslims are victimized for political gains. Before an election and all sorts of events, his blood directs the future of the country. His blood provides the magic touch that hovers the candidates right into the parliament hall. It paves the way for real estate. It's the armor of political power. It's the assuring hand that raises them to positions. His blood becomes the auspicious dot on Mother India's forehead, the red lotus to be worshipped. The poet expresses his anguish and protest when he says that every step I put forward turns into a pool of blood. My house fuels their fireworks, my house burns for their festivals, my house turns into the ashes of their demon on every Diwali. The poet expresses his concern that the dove's sex, which is symbolic of peace, that the ancestors preserved for future generations in history's nest, are crushed away. The poet could hear the echo of Mother Earth's ribs breaking for the first time. For the last time. The poet is critical of the Indian society and in a mood of rage when he says he doesn't dream anymore in his mother tongue. Instead, his thoughts take form in the language of the masters. He is in dismay that he lives in a society where cricket matches weigh and measure his patriotism. The poet's frustration with the system is evident when he says that his love for his motherland is not taken into consideration and what only matters is how much he hates the other land. The poet articulates his voice against the misrepresentation of Muslims in art and literature. He pities that his role as an evil clown antagonist entertains the audience on the silver screen and the theatre stage, but it leaves him handicapped. He is hurt. The poet is disturbed at the kind of Islamophobia leashed upon him and the people of his religion. The poet asks forgiveness from his friends that he cannot revere their great poet who makes up new words to disfigure him. He is not at all moved by the passion of the people's singer. Mohiuddin opines that the so called great poet finds no difference between the tyrant Muslim and the poor Muslim. The poet could only laugh it off when they talk of him as a synonym of violence and a symbol of intolerance. When they tell people the cycles of demon stories to warn them of their future with the poet, and when the ruler's watchdogs bark history into religion and turns religion into history, he could only laugh it off. The poet subsequently speaks about the victimization of the Muslims in the last part of the poem. He unveils his emotional state of his existence as a Muslim. He says that he has to bear too much of insults in response to his laughter, but his laughter is not real laughter. It's the cry of pain that he swallows day after day. Article 370 and a barbed wire of personal law strangles him. Article 370 was the basis for Jammu and Kashmir, the only Muslim majority region to join India when erstwhile princely states had the choice to join either India or Pakistan after their independence from the British rule in 1947. India and Pakistan subsequently went to war over it, and each came to control different parts of the territory with a ceasefire line agreed. Article 35A permits the local legislature in Indian administered Kashmir to define permanent residents of the region. It forbids outsiders from permanently settling, buying land, holding local government jobs, or winning education scholarships in the region. However, the government has revoked the articles in 2019, 21 years after this poem is published. In the poem, Khadar Mohiuddin recurrently brings out his position in India as a victim. The poet that the fact that secularism exists only in words and that it is unconcerned with action kills him. The poet exposes here the ideological bankruptcy and pseudo liberal dullness in the governing system. He reaffirms the statement that he is the victim. His birthmark is the society's statement that his birth is blemish. The poet asks, what is this affinity between the ruler's strategies and the rope that tightens around my neck? Why does the stream of my blood flow between the two pieces of land they secretly divided among themselves like a boundary agreed upon? The poet's references to the partition of India and Pakistan and the subsequent violence and bloodshed that the Muslims have to undergo. The partition of India and Pakistan on 15th August 1947 midnight is central to modern identity in the Indian subcontinent, which is branded painfully onto the regional consciousness by memories of unimaginable violence. The influence of partition and the violence attached to it persists even today after these 70 long years. The poet's dissent against the atrocities are pungently evoked when he says that the system demands that he should not ask why his birthmark sheds blood on the tips of the tridents, on the bayonets of the police, and on the ballot boxes. The, they oppress his voice of questioning. But the poet resists the power structure and hegemony when he asserts that his birthmark is his existence, his citizenship. Yes, my birthmark is me, my existence, my citizenship. It is my ancestral property, inherited from the earth, the sky, the air, the surroundings I live in. It is a wound that never heals. The poem ends with this note of resistance and assertion of his identity as the citizen of India. It is his right and not someone's benevolence. He has inherited it from the earth, the sky, the earth, air, and the surroundings where he is born and live, and is his ancestral property. It is a wound that never heals. Though the poet asserts his identity, he is sad that the wound of birthmark never heals. The poem is a representation to the society to rethink and to assist the poet to heal it. So, this poem is translated from Telugu by B. Narayana Rao and published in his book 20th Century Telugu Poetry and Anthology. Ramachandra Guha has commented on the anthology thus: one of the most powerful poems in the collection is Khadar Mohiuddin's Birthmark, which anatomizes the fate of being a Muslim in free India, where long before I was born my name was listed among traitors, where circumstances make me a refugee in the very country of my birth.
Thank you for listening to me. Stay home, stay safe. Have a great day.